To place our windows in our floor plans, we're going to want to start all the way over here in our north elevation. This will be the back of the garage. It tells us that we're going to be placing window 1 in the back of our garage 3 feet 2 inches up from the ground floor. Well, it doesn't tell us in this drawing in a dimension of how far left and right they're placed. This is where we have to read. Right? The horizontal dimension is to be derived from the floor plans. Make sure that you use the center of the window as a snap point if you're using an XRefed floor plan to locate the windows. Now that's so easy. Let me show you how quick it really is. What we want to do is just draw ourselves a temporary line. I can draw a line from the midpoint of my window. My midpoint snap isn't turned on. Let's go ahead and set that to be default. But I can just draw a line from the midpoint straight down. Now, because I've aligned this drawing with my floor plan, that means that the location of these windows in reference to my walls are exactly the same. Remember, this drawing here is just another view of this home that we have here. So if I were to measure from the endpoint to the center line of my window, that would be the same exact distance as the endpoint of this wall to the center line of my window. Now, for me to place my window, I'm going to take this bottom edge and offset it up that 3'2", and it's now at this intersection and this intersection that I'm going to be placing a copy of my window 1. I'm going to go ahead and select it, copy, CO, enter, from that bottom midpoint, and just go place it at the 2 intersections on this drawing. I can go ahead and delete those 3 temporary lines, and now my windows are placed exactly where I need them to be in relation to my floor plan drawings. Skipping down to page 6, we're going to be able to find the vertical heights of our remaining windows. On the lower portion, or the lower floor, we have a vertical height of 2 feet 2 inches to the bottom of that window. And then we have a vertical height of 12 feet 9 for our second story windows. If you pay closer attention though, you're going to see that the lower story windows are the taller ones, being windows 3 and window 4. As well as the upper story windows are the shorter ones, being windows 1 and window 2. One tip that I have is for me to, instead of offsetting a line for each and every one of these elevations, I offset a very long line that goes completely from the left over to the right to where I can use that as my vertical height. Since all of these are aligned horizontally, that same distance should be uniform through all of our drawings. So I'm going to take one of my porch railings here in the south, or one of my porch lines in the south elevation, and I'm going to offset it up 2 feet 2 inches. I'm going to then take the grip points and extend it all the way out to the right and all the way out to the left, keeping it horizontal. And this line will now be my bottom of the windows for each of my elevations. Now, I don't want to have to offset another line and extend super far out, so I'm going to do some quick math to figure out how far to offset that large line to get up here to my 12'9" distance. If I keep feet separate from each other, they're a difference of 10, and inches separate, they're a difference of 7. So if I offset that line, that new line I just created, up, I got to type in the distance, up by 10 feet 7 inches, I should be exactly 12 feet 9 above my porch. Now, for me to find my horizontals, I'm going to draw in those vertical temporary lines. I'm going to start a line over here on this far midpoint of my west elevation and come down through my drawing. Now, it'd be difficult for me to have to zoom in, click on that endpoint, zoom out, click down here, zoom in, click on this midpoint, zoom out, click down here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just copy this long line from the midpoint of that window to the midpoint of this window to the midpoint of the windows in my south elevation to the midpoints of the windows in my west elevation or east elevation, to the midpoints of the windows in my north elevation. Now we already have these two, so I don't need to do those. Looking at the south elevation, I have one instance of all 4 windows. I'm just going to make a copy of these 4 and move them closer to the south elevation. I can now use one of them by moving them into location. I'm going to start with the upper 2 windows. I have a window 2. I'm going to move that from its midpoint over here to this intersection on the top left. My window 1, I'm going to move from its bottom midpoint to this intersection in the top right. Now I have my window 3 down here in the bottom left intersection, but I got a bunch of lines right there. So I'm going to zoom way in and make sure that I click the exact midpoint that I want. Same thing when I place in my window 4. Now that I've finished placing windows in my south elevation, I'm going to delete these 2 vertical temporary lines. I'm going to leave my horizontals because they go throughout all of my other ones. Going down to the next elevation, this here will be the west elevation. I have a window 3. This is shorter. This is a window 1. The reason it's shorter here is because of our kitchen. Then I'm going to have 2 window 1s above it. So let's go ahead and go back to our drawing. I'm going to have a window 1 and a window 3. I'm holding shift so I can select both. I'm going to copy those up closer to our drawing. I only have one window 3, so I can move that one into place. Now I have 3 window 1s, so I'm going to copy first to my lower intersection, then my upper intersection, and then I have another one over here a little bit, but I don't know exactly where. When I look at the PDF, it's over a little bit shorter than this window below it, so I know I can't go to that intersection of the other one. Well, I get that dimension from looking at my second story. Now we only have our XRefed drawings of our first floor in here, so I don't see that here. So what I need to do is either open up floor 2, or I can XRef in floor 2. Now my memory serves me well, and I remember that the distance between this window in our guest bathroom and the window in our master bathroom happen to be 6 feet apart. So I'm simply just going to copy this window to the left by 6 feet. I can now go ahead and delete these 2 temporary lines. Also in here, the book wants me to align the tops of these 2 windows. And so what I'm going to do is simply copy this window up until I'm at the height of this window here. By doing so, if I mouse over the endpoint and I bring over my extension, I can get them up the same exact height. Copying was not what I wanted to do. It looks like I wanted to move it. That was a big difference. So move it from this endpoint, hover over this one, and bring out that extension. Now we can delete this instance of the copied window over here. All right, you have 2 more elevations that we need to place windows in. We have our east elevation and our north elevation. Since my windows are all the way over here off to the left side of my screen, I'm just going to move them a little bit closer. So now I'm going to work on the east elevation. The east elevation has 2 copies of our double windows, both top and bottom. So the taller ones go on the bottom. I'm going to copy that from the bottom midpoint, and we'll go to that intersection there and this intersection here. Again, we'll trim those up later. And then this double window, copy that from the midpoint to our upper 2 intersections. Right. Over here in my north elevation, I'm going to have 2 copies of my larger. Let's go ahead and move that to the bottom 2. And then only 1 copy of my shorter windows up top. All right, I'm gonna now delete one of those instances, and just to be kind to myself, in case I ever make a mistake, I'm just gonna leave these 4 windows over here to the left side of my drawing. I can now delete all of my vertical and horizontal instances of my reference lines. We will do our trims in the next segment.